I'll be honest, for the first year, that was about 3 years ago.
And it was a huge pay cut.
The first year, I didn't do an awful lot. I think I was shattered.
And like that, that's our first foursome, and boy, was it an enjoyable one. We're huge fans of Ciaran and Rachel, so it was a pleasure speaking to them on the podcast. It's not a couples and business episode. This is very much about the adventures of life. Don't say journey, as you'll get to at the end of the episode. It's all about the adventure. If you're new here, please do give us a like, a comment, subscribe, or share. Even if you're not new here, it's always appreciated as we are building and growing our podcast channel. Thank you for watching. Let's get going.
Right. Let's do it.
We're going straight into it.
You're leading this one.
I know.
I'm poorly.
Rachel and Ciaran, an absolute pleasure to have you here on Digital Circus Life. But we need to start at the beginning, which is where we start with everyone. What are you trying to achieve?
Well, good morning, first of all. Thank you for the invite.
Good morning.
What we're trying to achieve is to be able to get to the end of this conversation.
Yeah. Well, because it's a whirlwind, and we just the achievement is that we are at a stage in our life where we actually do want to. Well, I make no secret of the fact that I'm 60 next year, and so the achievement is about giving back and making the most of where I'm at. And I know, Rachel,
I think it's also our business is all about something that's sustainable, so that we can keep doing more of what we're doing for longer. I think when we come from a corporate environment, you get burnt out and tired as you get older. But if you're doing something that you love and actually can see that you can actually add value, and it sort of gives you that purpose in life that you want to sort of, as Ciaran says, give back, but in a way that works for us as well, because it's kind of that work-life balance. And it means, from our point of view, hopefully we can do it longer into our life, because we're all living longer. So we want to make sure that actually we're making the most of life, because, for some of us, for both of us, we've had experience of our brothers dying suddenly. So it's a privilege to be alive. So you want to make the most of it.
And you may as well be doing something you love. And actually, we have chosen the aspects of the jobs that we love most. And the fact that we're doing it together is great as well. And that was a later decision, as we may get to later on, from the point of view we've been together. And this is an interesting thing as well. I love this.
Ciaran woke up this morning. Ciaran starts talking before I've even woken up.
I know how that feels, Rachel. I know how that feels.
No idea what you're talking about, Emily.
Well, 37 years ago today, we met.
Yeah.
So
Congratulations.
I had just come back from America, and I gate crashed a party, and I hadn't intended to go, and we weren't invited. Rachel was at a party, and well, I'll let you tell your bit.
No, it was just he my friend's party, and then we all ended up down on a place called Leeson Street, which is where our age group all went to nightclubs after the party ended. And it was a big group of us, and I was trying to avoid certain people, and my friend knew some of your friends, so we ended up kind of chatting, and as they say, the rest is history.
And I thought, because she was trying to avoid speaking to someone else, I thought, oh, she likes me.
I was avoiding big time.
So 37 years later, we're still together, and that was October the 17th into October the 18th. So we kind of think we met at the party, and then we definitely met at about 2:00 in the morning. And
I met you early morning as well. I thought you were an absolute donut.
The similarities are certainly there. See, interestingly, I was going to go down the corporate-y burnout route, not burnout, but kind of corporate-y route, and then why be owning your own business. But actually, the being battered at a party and one half thinking the other half is an utter donut is way more interesting a conversation. We can talk corporate burnout any day of the week. So
Alan was one of those where he met me at a bar, or in a festival at a bar.
Festival. We were on scout camp, Henry. Do not paint
he was
it
at the bar,
to
and
what
he was
it
doing
is.
that whole Charlie.
Stone Roses.
No, we were not at the Stone Roses. We were at Ferny Crofts for Trek Cart Scout camp.
Anyway, he's at the bar and he did a proper Del Boy where he's leaning against the bar and literally fell through the hole on the floor. And I went, no, I don't need you in my life. And I walked away from it.
Can I just say, if anyone is listening whose children are in Scouts, this is not a camp where there are under 18s. We were all over 18, so it was festival-like. There were no under 18s present, which is why we were allowed alcohol. And it was 18 years ago. We were definitely still allowed alcohol 18 years ago.
Anyhow, right, let's bring this around. Kieran, do not look 60. Well done, you. And Rachel, well done for having someone who doesn't look 60.
What age is Kieran?
I'm healthier looking now than I did when I was 40. It does go when you're doing stuff you love as well, from the point of view when when you were talking about corporate burnout and stuff like that. We worked like mad through our 30s, and that was when we were living in the UK, and it was nothing to do with the UK. We loved it, but we were working for others, and it was always on their time frame, and it was always and we loved the customers and we loved the jobs we did and things, but your time was never your own, and actually if you are getting better sleep, and if you are actually
eating better,
and because people say, oh, you lost weight and things like that. But I didn't. I just started walking. I just started eating better.
Stop shoveling rubbish in.
Silly things like, when we were so busy, the temptation was to jump into Waitrose or the equivalent on the way home and grab something quick to eat or a takeaway. Whereas we cut all of that out now, and we cook from, normally cook from scratch, which means it's immediately healthier because we just build that time in now to do that.
And the other thing you never realise is actually just going into petrol stations, like actually literally going in.
Ciaran going in. I didn't realise this was happening, going into petrol stations and...
I fill up with petrol. Oh, I see a Twix there. There's a Mars bar. I had crisps and all these. Oh, I haven't had lunch, so I'll have a sandwich. But of course, it's one of these pre-made sandwiches with everything on top and all. And then you eat. And...
I had that. My one of my first proper jobs, as I always like to say, I was a field engineer, sort of 40,000 miles a year. And if I was tired, I'd stop and buy some sweets for a sugar kick, And it was literally, there's no, I try not to use the word healthy. I'm more a fan of balanced diet, right? Yeah. So which means you can eat anything in moderation. But when you go to a petrol station or service station, there was nothing other than crap food there to consume. And I'm like, what if I don't want this?
Yeah.
It was pretty.
Well, I'm bringing it to a question. So I'm really curious that actually, I love the fact that we're doing a duo and a duo today. This is our first foursome on the podcast. I'm really excited to be explored. But we've talked about this long and hard before being on the podcast, and how being a husband and wife in business, or partner with your partner in business, is quite a unique thing. And it comes with a lot of dynamics that other people who might be running their own business by themselves wouldn't be experiencing. Now, you've just hit the nail on the head then. I'm really curious to explore it a little bit in terms of the fact that you said you're happier and healthier now than you were in your corporate, where a lot of people may hear that, oh, you work with your partner. No, we'd end up in divorce. I don't think I could do that. So how has it evolved for you in terms of you having this better lifestyle now working together than when you were working apart?
I think it did evolve naturally and gradually. I think we've always got on. I think there's been no doubts that, we've been very lucky that we're the yin and the yang. We are very different, but then that complements our personalities very well. And I think when we moved into business, started working together, it took a little bit of time to almost explore how we approach business, because we approach it very differently.
And we actually didn't work together.
We never. Because I did a lot of contracting, so I would be, still working in the business, but with a company or whatever. So it was kind of a gradual thing, and then just over time we started. I suppose it was more this. Where it probably really started to develop was when we started doing the strategy. When you have the strategy meetings and exploring those, and probably we would have contrasting views about things. And so it started to, when we never really had heated discussions before, and they were, but they were business heated discussions. They were healthy. And from my point of view, what was great about it, I think I always held back when I was in the corporate world. I never felt my opinion was as worthy as somebody else's, so I would sit back. Whereas, to be fair to you, Ciaran, you're brilliant at allowing me the opportunity to say what I want to say, whether it's right or wrong, nice or not nice, we're allowed to just be totally honest. And I think that's really healthy. And it's kind of getting that balance between when we say stuff that we then pull it back and kind of get that happy balance. So for us, it actually, and I think then we've kind of, as you guys know, because it's your business, you can decide how you want to work it. So you decide what works and what doesn't work. And I think for a lot of the stress we had in our previous life, it was tended to be that corporate politics, the breakdown in communication. Like to me, everything is around communication. And people either use communication as a power tool to get where they wanted to do and not share it with other people, or there was a breakdown in how people communicated. So I think what we were very quickly established was how best to communicate with each other. So we just used what we did in life and brought it gradually into the business.
And also having a laugh. And I know being fun is so much part of what you do. And we talk to people about love and really loving what you do and actually if you don't sell to yourself first, or if you don't promote to yourself, how the hell are you ever, how's it ever going to work if you don't believe it? So part of what we were doing when we were testing things we'd be trying out. Now I do love a good idea, and I do like to think of things, and some of them ain't the smartest, but they're worth getting out there, And Rachel is a brilliant finisher. And she has a very high, it should be low, shouldn't it? Like her tolerance level, she likes things just right. Oh, that full stop is wrong there, and you should have a comma there and things. And that's not my natural thing. I just, it's grand. And she'll go, no.
Yeah. Probably right.
Because so it works. I think Ciaran is definitely, you're very creative, blue sky. I'm much more practical and kind of delivery focused and bringing it to the real and so he has the idea. So that's why it kind of works as well.
And people are genuinely surprised because Rachel is a bit louder than people think. People initially think, oh, a poor quiet Rachel. It's actually not. I tend to be the listener from the point of view. I am naturally quieter. It just doesn't appear that way because
I just can't believe it, Ciaran.
But I always believed that if you do things first and you've nothing to lose. I know Alan kind of comes that way as well. You get out there and then you learn from it, and then Rachel would be more of an observer. And then once she gets going, as you find, she'll take the conversation, won't she?
Yeah. Yeah, I like to think about things.
I mean, all I'm hearing, right, is that you guys have basically won the lottery of life, right? Like, it might have taken a few years to get here, but you're happier and healthier than ever. You're working together. Bits of like your I don't want to say bits of your character, but things you may want to naturally do, you may have held at bay in the kind of your employed world, and you're really getting to be yourselves, make a difference. And we've heard this before from a lot of people who were employed and gone into running their own business, that one of the reasons they've done that is because they've wanted to see the impact of what they do or can do and everything else. And whereas employment, it's like, your boss, Jeff or Linda, they may have seen some of your impact. But
Jeff and Linda always get a bad time.
I know. Well, they need to. Jeff and Linda need to buck their ideas up, basically. Sorry, Jeff and Linda. And so, yeah, from here, you're absolutely proof that it's you're winning the lottery of life. And it's not necessarily financially related, if that makes sense. It is about life, and cooking. How nice is just being able to cook dinner, and have a properly cooked meal and things like that.
Yeah, like, don't get us wrong. Like, we're lucky in the sense that our daughter has grown up, so we could take that, I suppose, that jump to kind of be less, money focused in some ways. And neither of us have ever been. It's never been. It's been a means to an end, if you know what I mean, to provide it.
When we were at your stage, and we were living in the UK, we didn't have a support network per se. There was the two of us, and so Rachel was working in financial services, and I was working for an electrical distributor, and I was out on the road, so there was a bit more freedom for me to be able to go to some of the other ones, but a lot of the time it did fall on you, didn't it? You were expected, and you didn't know, you didn't work. You veered between 3 and 5 days, didn't you? Depending on,
Yeah. It kind of, depending on what stage of Ailish's, schooling she was at, as to whether we need play dates and things like that. So we needed the time, that you guys know all of that. So we kind of had to kind of balance it a little bit. But I think everybody always says, and you guys will know this, how do you work together? But in reality, we're not sitting beside each other 24/7. Kieran's upstairs on calls and I'm downstairs. It's not, in some ways, during COVID, we kind of, it's kind of how we worked when we were working alongside doing different jobs. Yes, we come together and we do stuff, like as you guys probably do at different stages of the day, but we do, we're not on top of each other as well. Yeah. So we do have that balance, which again, I think in any sort of employment, regardless of whether you're working on your own or in a corporate space, there's times where you need to work on your own. And there's times where you need to come together as a team.
And actually, Rachel alluded to it, COVID was the game changer for us. We wouldn't be having this chat if it wasn't for COVID, purely because I was very old school, and I thought everything had to be face to face, and it was all about being in the room, and you had to be sitting opposite someone. So my first ever Zoom was actually when I was part of the BNI back in Ireland, and I happened to be the business of the week when COVID went live the following week. So I actually did my first ever thing on Zoom. Was my 10-minute presentation of my business. And I didn't know what I was doing, so I just talked for 10 minutes. And suddenly people liked it. And I thought, wow.
Yeah.
And so that's how things opened up. And Steph, who you guys know, she was living in Ireland then, and actually I had met her through networking, and we had worked together and things, and she actually used to come and substitute for my when I was on holidays or things. She would come to the BNI and do that, represent me, and she was brilliant, but she never talked about her business, but she'd sell my business like there was no and then she moved back to the UK, and because she moved back to the UK, she moved back to Crawley, which is where she was from, and her husband is Irish and all the bits and bobs. And it was her who told us all about the Only Network. And that's why we network in the UK online purely. And that was our reintroduction to say, because when we said goodbye to the UK in 2005, we thought that was it. 17, 18 years over there. And
you're virtually back here.
Yeah.
Right, so I want to go back. I want to do what I always do. I like to go back to the beginning, right? So have you always wanted to kind of be in this sort of career industry? How do we get from sort of cruising around Dublin when you're young, meeting at a party, blind drunk, that you've gate crashed, to, careers in sales and marketing, to now kind of working with supporting other businesses with it? How do you get there?
She was Miss Duffy. She was a teacher. She was.
Were you?
Yeah. I always wanted to be a teacher. I think my mum was a teacher. So when people as a child, you're creative. I was always the teacher. We always had to play school. That was my thing. My poor brothers.
And she loved being particularly the history teacher. And she was teaching in a girls' school, and they were about 11, wasn't it?
11 or 12. And I think the first day I walked in, they all told me they hated history. So I just thought, I don't care if you learn nothing about history by the end of the year. I just want you to love the subject by the end of the year, because I just thought, no, because to me it was such an amazing subject. So that was my goal. So I didn't care if, so we just did. We made it so much fun, and just and we got projects, and I would pull out not necessarily the A-star child, but the quieter child, or the child who was struggling a little bit with the project, and they would win the competition because they tried the harder. So you were trying. It was all about getting every. So by the end of it, so Ciaran used to tease me about saying, I'm the favourite teacher. So
because when we be out, they think I'm the best ever. I'm brilliant.
And it was, because I made it like it wasn't like a class. It wasn't like a class really, because we did songs, we did competitions, we did everything, drawings, just to bring it to life and make it real for them.
And did they get good grades? Because obviously that style of learning is kind of nowadays, that's the style of learning that's suggested that people should be having, you know. So did they actually go on to get good grades?
You see,
this was the late 80s.
I went to England shortly after, there were no jobs. So this was during my training. I got to do this.
So Rachel was doing this in one college in Dublin called UCD, and I was in another college called Trinity College Dublin, and I was studying economics and philosophy. And economics was to get me a job, and philosophy was because I loved it. And the thing is, when you'd be out in the pub at night, you could have a discussion about all the subjects you weren't meant to be talking about: philosophy, religion, everything. Well, philosophy was perfect because that's what the subjects would rage in. And so Rachel would be chatting away about teaching, and I'd be chatting away about philosophy. What do you think of this? Does God exist?
Is that chair over there really there?
Yeah.
We used to have these mad conversations, and it was it was good. But
I've got a very good friend called Richard who I ran across the desert with. I had to crowbar that in.
You ran across the desert.
I ran across the desert, and he did for his university degree the philosophy of maths, and his dissertation was written on: is the meter rule in Paris actually a meter long? You know, so I'm like, our heads used to explode as we were kind of running and having
mine was the value of introspection.
It
was all about your inner thought, and actually, again, I thought it was very cool because people think, oh, he's loud and he's this and that. They, oh no, I'm very deep. There's a lot going on here, you know. But the late 80s in Ireland was very different to what you would see as it now, because there was no economy. There just wasn't any work, but we had a very young population, so
well educated,
and we were kind of having our 60s in the 80s. So U2, all that kind of thing was driving, and they were massive throughout the world. So all our peers and our relatives, we all emigrated, and you know, Rachel's the only girl with 6 brothers, and the whole family
at some stage were out of the country. All of us have come back since. But,
we were the last to come back.
Yeah, but it's just that was just the way it was. You had to, you know, we were lucky enough. We only we only had to go to London, but that was a big adventure. We loved it.
And remember, there was no mobile phones. There was no internet. Mobile phones were just coming in. But the general thing when we first went to work was that you didn't have a mobile phone. They were just city slickers who had the mobile phones. The companies we were in.
Big.
Yeah. But you, I'm on the phone, and you would
ring home.
You would ring home and you'd reverse the charges.
Once a week you'd ring home, but you'd also write your letters as well. So it was the days where you still wrote letters and cards and.
I told you how the week had gone.
Yeah. So I initially shared a house with four other friends, and we'd all share each other's letters because we'd all, especially initially, we're also homesick. So we'd all share all the letters and things like that. So
now we were boyfriend and girlfriend at this stage, and I was in Crawley, and then Rachel you started off in Romford, wasn't it?
Yeah, there were no jobs in teaching, so I kind of just happened to see an ad for a graduate trainee job in an insurance company, and I was like, what's insurance? And I got my brother's business book out to kind of look up what it was, and and I ended up getting the job or whatever. So yeah, I was on this program, and you were on a program in London, and we kind of moved around London for a while, and then gradually we kind of moved South London, and I started out in sales, didn't like it at all, and then I had the option of moving into training or into marketing, and the marketing job came up first. I knew nothing about marketing, to be honest, at that stage. So I kind of moved into marketing.
Most marketing people don't.
As I say, Rachel, that's a philosophical question in itself.
Yeah, it is. Well, what I was at 22 or whatever it was. I was still getting my head around. I was in a business world, bearing in mind, my parents were not from a business background. Like my mum was a teacher, my dad was a vet. So they were kind of completely different space. So it was kind of all new to me. And it was just an adventure. Like to me, it was just about meeting people and having fun at that stage, and then I did go back and do my.
But you did your marketing exams.
I did do my qualifications. I soon learned what marketing was all about. So that kind of.
But that, sorry, I mean, you've said so much. I have to make a comment about the late 80s in Dublin and U2, who started making music to share the low economic kind of world in U2, and then ended up kind of taking all the money for themselves. But they do charity stuff. I'm only being silly. What do you say? Your kind of motto about having fun and meeting people, that can take you quite a long way in life. The kind of almost simplest thought process can sometimes be the one that resonates hardest, and you can kind of see that you are sort of fun and you do want to meet people, and from where we're sitting, that's done okay for you as a kind of.
Well, you see, part of it as well is the fact that with my career, I realised actually I didn't mind selling, but I actually much preferred being a sales manager and actually helping others to be. It's a particular kind of beast. It's slightly different to being the person front end, actually helping others to do it. And for whatever reason, a lot of people don't like selling. They don't even like the word. And Rachel has always been brilliant at working with salespeople when it came to marketing, didn't you?
Well, as you know, marketing is all about relationships. Certainly in the space I was in, it was all about stakeholder management. It's all about getting on with the salespeople, getting on with all the different areas. That's what I loved about marketing. To me, you were the center of the business, and you had to know everything, what was going on. And my nosiness would naturally kick in there. I loved that because it was an excuse to go and build the relationships with all these different people. And your contacts were the people who got you that deadline achievement, or got you to get that budget signed off, or to find that bit of information to get that proposal over the line. So, to me, everything in business is about the people. It's I know systems and all that, but that's people sitting behind it. It's so crucial.
Yeah. Two things. First of all, Ciaran, I have an image of you in the kind of late 80s, early 90s as a sales manager in a Wolf of Wall Street style, right? It's sort of with the parties to motivate the team. And Rachel, you're talking about marketing being at the center of the business. I saw this great quote from James Smith, PT. I'm in one of his sales funnels at the moment because I was curious. And it's aimed at fitness coaches. I'm not even target audience, but it said, if you're full up, then your prices are too low. And if you're not full up, then you're not marketing yourself hard enough. And it's like business is just continually going around for, bearing in mind this is aimed at fitness coaches before anyone says that's not me. But I quite like that kind of simplified, if you're thought up, if you're full up, raise your prices. And if you're not full up, work blimmin' harder at marketing yourself. And it's really kind of, I don't know, it sat in my head.
James Smith has been in your head for about, you need to move on to someone else new.
Yeah, but you tell me off whoever I'm on. So, if I talk about Matt Armstrong, you tell me off. If I talk about, who can I talk about, darling?
But it's interesting you say that, going back to
that wasn't a proper domestic,
you can have
everyone.
the best team ever, but we're working with a client at the moment. We're working within their team, and they have a really great team dynamic, but they do work in very much a siloed approach to their business. And one of the things we've always said, and you guys know this as well, your marketing and your sales aren't two silos. They have to come together a little bit. Unless they're talking together, then how can you as you said, it is the center of the business, because you need to find out, you need to get under the skin of what's going on. You need to know what the business goal is. You need to know what the sales goal is. All of that needs to come together. And when people do look at it in that siloed approach, that's where that disconnect comes. And I suppose that's where you two, with your super skills, especially Rachel having that marketing background, makes you that force to be reckoned with when it comes to the sales training that you deliver now with Woodhazel.
Well, if you actually think about it as well, you'll probably find within that team, or when you have different clients, they think they have a sales problem, or they think they have a marketing problem, and it's the other. Because it's marketing, or it's sales, or we need to do this, we're not doing that. And it's 9 times out of 10 it's because they don't communicate, and they're not hearing, or there's no connection between the two. And that's why sometimes when people get 2 for the price of 1, that's the huge benefit, as I say, when they work with the 2 of us, because they think that, we're talking to Ciaran about the sales, and then suddenly Rachel, well, have you thought about this? And they go, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's also, like you guys do it so well, the customer, at the end of the day, if the customer's not at the center, and we're all not pointing towards the customer, then what are we doing? So I think, and certainly in bigger companies, and that's where the silos kick in. The finance people are there. They're worrying about the board meetings or whatever. You'll have different product areas just getting the project over the line. But if they don't understand why they're doing that, it's actually at the end of the day, you have to be customer centric. There's a purpose. It kind of, that's where the silos kick in. And I suppose that's the luxury of a smaller business.
Yeah.
You've a finite amount of resource and a finite amount of time and effort. So you need to be very strategic in where what you're doing and how you're doing it. And I think you guys do that really well. You bring it back to what's important, and then work out from that. Yeah. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
No, but it is also saying to people, do you want to be a team? Because because sometimes people don't. They're just a group of people, and actually that's the issue. They're not a team, and so it can actually be a So that's why we like to work with individuals, and then find out where they're coming from and what they're trying to do, and then saying, right, come together. How are you going to move forward, and what are you going to do, and what? Because people will have to be prepared to give and take, and that doesn't always happen, or people aren't comfortable to do that.
No, it doesn't. So then going back to how you got here, and we started in teach.
Same question.
We started with teaching, and you were tearing up Dublin, and then you all left, and you've all come to the UK. If you
think about it, back in your day, they used to do things called the graduate training scheme. That's how we got, and so companies would hire you for 2 years, and they would put you through all the different jobs. Like, it's brilliant, and I don't know why they don't do enough of it now, where they would actually. And in my case, they didn't let you become a salesperson straight off. You had to learn to do admin and purchasing, and you worked in every department, and you wrote a little
to understand the business. That's really what they were at.
And then they insisted that the first job I had to do, having been based out of Crawley and London, as the graduate trainee, I would get sent to all the different branches, and then you had to sign up for a year or 2 years to do a job. Like in my case, I chose purchasing, so I got sent to Basingstoke. And
sent to the universe.
I grew up in Andover.
I hadn't realised closed at 6 o'clock at night, because very few people lived in Basingstoke. So I requested, could I commute from Crystal Palace, because it was interfering with my social life, because there was nothing to do in Basingstoke, because everyone lived. They didn't live there, did they? They all moved. So
nothing's changed.
Yeah,
you leave Festival Palace alone. Festival Place. I can't even get it right. Yeah.
So we did learn that actually it was a benefit to learn your trade and to work through. And so I never actually got to be out on the road till the 90s, and then I had to earn my money as a salesperson on the road, and bide my time. And then the London area sales manager's job came up, and was it 94, 95, just after Ailish was born. But I'd been a branch manager before that, so it was very gradual. So I did get loads of learnings, and I didn't realise it, but I learned about team. But the one thing I did learn, once I got the job of being a sales manager, I knew, right, this is it. I can actually make a difference here, and we can start hiring people, because previously it tended to be male. It tended to be people who had been in the electrical trade. I couldn't even change a plug. So I passionately believe that everyone can sell, but you have to find what works for you. So some people are very organized, and others are very charismatic. Others are really good at customer service. There's loads of different ways of doing it. And so if you're going to have a sales team, you may as well get as many different characters who are going to inspire people to do it. Meanwhile, Rachel is doing the same in marketing, in financial services.
Yeah, just over the years, you kind of get moved around. And if you're working in a big enough company, you kind of every 6 months get moved into a different area, because they're restructuring or they're changing around. So you get your breadth of experience. So I would always say I'm a marketing generalist, or whatever so I'm not a specialist in anything, but I kind of have a good overview on the strategy. So that kind of gradually we just kind of, I suppose life just got on, and then we in 2005 2006 we moved back to Ireland, because for family you needed to be closer to your parents, and even then I was lucky enough then to initially I worked in a stationery company doing the marketing there, and that was mad. That was kind of totally off to Frankfurt and places like that, doing a lot of research and stuff on products. It was very product. It was all product driven.
But you did sales as well.
I did sales. Yeah, I had to break. I kind of got the big business with some of the big supermarkets getting their stationery in. So that was me back into selling. But because I had the marketing experience, it kind of worked really, really well. So that kind of, and then during the crash, then the company went. And I was lucky enough then that the company I had worked with in the UK were opening up an international company in Ireland. Yeah. And I happened to I just walked in and just to see if I knew anybody. And right place, right time, they needed somebody marketing. So I kind of joined them and the company grew and stuff like that. So I kind of was with them right up to...
And the first year we came back, Rachel didn't work at all. And I came back for a year before the girls. I was commuting between the two. We still lived in the UK, and I was in the corporate thing and that was where Ryanair was fantastic because you could get the last flight on a Friday and first flight on a Monday and that kind of stuff. And so I stayed very corporate, and I stayed very corporate for a couple of years, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then again the crash shifted for you. So Ciaran moved more into. You kind of started to do different, what do you call them?
Well, I had agencies.
Agencies, that's the word. I couldn't think of it. Yeah. So you kind of moved into agencies.
So was it a gradual shift then into running your own business? So it wasn't you didn't wake up one morning with an epiphany and go, we're going to do this.
No, I think it was a gradual on running into the business, but actually moving into what we're now doing now was probably where we wanted to be longer.
It was also lifestyle. We came back because my mother had dementia at the time, and my father wasn't well either. And so the flexibility suddenly became a very important thing for me. And so we had really, really good quality time. Our daughter, who came back with us, was 11, and so she grew up and was very much part of my mother's care and very much part of my dad's life as well. So when my mother left in 2010, when she died, Ailish had brilliant exposure, hadn't she? And so an awful lot of what we were, I needed the flexibility to be able to be certain places and to do things, and so Rachel's job became the corporate.
Yeah, and that was the one that paid the mortgage and kind of paid and give you the element of freedom to have the flexibility to do a bit more of the caring and stuff, because he's underselling here because he's an uncle as well who needed a lot of care as well. So there was a lot of family shifts and time needed there. And that all, so you ran a number of agencies from your point of view. I was still full, and then my job, the company was acquired, so that led to a redundancy scenario, and then which was tough. That was kind of the first phase of kind of almost not burnt out, but really stressed, and it wasn't nice. And then you had the business set up, so I was able to use the business then to move into contracting, and started doing quite a few years of contracting. But what I really...
Nice corporate contracts.
Lovely corporate contracts. But what I was realising was what was really beginning to kind of lose the charm for me was the politics. And I loved going in and doing the contracting where you had a specific project, doing the job. I loved that. But then the longer the contracts would get renewed, and suddenly you'd be seen as almost like a full member, and you'd be pulled back into all the nonsense. And I just thought, you know what? I don't need this anymore. Yeah. And so Ciaran was kind of
over the other side of the world. I had my dad. My dad lasted for nearly 7 years after my mother died, and but the thing is, my dad had been a salesman. He'd been in insurance, and he was the nicest man you'd ever meet. He was an absolute really lovely man, but he was such a people person. And so he loved we got a little dog, a West Highland Terrier dog, Lewis. And so I was able to bring my dad and Lewis on calls, which you could never do corporate. And so some customers were either doggy people, or other customers where they loved the nice man with all the stories. So
ticking every box.
We were ticking every box, and she was hearing all these stories. Like we went to the Aran Islands because it was one of my dad's little tick boxes that he hadn't been to the Aran Islands and he wanted to visit it. So myself, himself, and the dog, I did a few calls, which was the supposed justification for while we were out there. But then we stayed in a hotel which was dog friendly, and it was during Galway.
Yeah, he was having a great time.
You're working hard.
Isn't that the point, though? You get to do whatever you bloody well want to do, and no one can tell you.
Yeah, but
otherwise.
I think the point is both doing that. At the time, Rachel's still working really hard for someone else.
Yeah.
Kieran's living the dream.
Yeah, and I wasn't doing it. Like we were doing okay, and in fact, the stoves, one of the businesses I was involved in at the time was doing fine, but it was different, and
it was it was down to the market. It was volatile in the sense that it was suddenly environmentally stoves were not as acceptable as they should. They kind of, we could see an end in sight.
So we had a little stove shop as well. So I had actually got involved in retail as well. And that was where the dog was actually brilliant, because I used to bring him and he would lie asleep in front of the stove and people would come in and you go, well, the dog would sell it because he,
And then your dad kind of passed, and then you kind of moved more. You found yourself moving more into training and coaching salespeople, and you started to notice that actually there was as much questions around marketing as there were around coaching. And you sort of had said to me, you could see that I wasn't very happy. I wasn't.
They were hating it.
I was beginning to it was beginning to get to me, and you kept saying, "Look, there is an opportunity here. Let's give it a go." And we kind of thought, do you know what? I had an opportunity to stay on with the contracting and it was during COVID, so there was a lot of stuff going on, and so we kind of. I moved into this element of the business, as into the training and the coaching and stuff. But I'll be honest, for the first year, that was about 3 years ago.
And it was a huge pay cut.
The first year, I didn't do an awful lot. I think I was shattered. I was, and there was a big shift for me as well, kind of moving from a corporate headspace. Even like Emily, I know we've discussed this and it's one of the things
You'd never done networking or stuff.
It's not even that. It's this thing of branding yourself. I was so used to sitting behind a brand, and you weren't allowed to be. You had to be the brand. You had to follow the brand guidelines of the company. So invariably you weren't allowed to talk unless you got the PR, sign up, all that sort of stuff. So it took me a while to almost get shift that mindset. To kind of go actually, and then
decorporatized.
Yeah. So I kind of get. So when I talk to people, I understand that journey, and I hate to use the word journey, but it is a bit of it takes time. So that and then I also I went back and did coaching, just more. I did that's me anyway. I like to get qualified in things just because it gives me that. I kind of feel, I am doing it right. It's just the way I am. Yeah. So that was really good for me as well. Not so much, actually, just for my headspace, just to help me kind of get clear in my head that this is the route we want to go down. And
the other reason it was a good decision as well is because Rachel's parents, they were a generation or two younger than my parents, so it's almost it was the right time for.
I could see having what the flexibility Kieran's needed. That I am needing that flexibility now a little bit as well, and as I said earlier as well, Ailish is kind of old enough. She's happily settled in a really good job. And
she's a speech therapist,
so we don't have that concern anymore. So we could take the risk a little bit, because no matter what, I mean, you're setting up a business, you have to go in with your eyes open that it may or may not work. So you have to. And that's my mindset as well. I'm practical, so I'd be thinking logically through these.
But it is tricky, you talk about, I think we're going to slowly bring this to an end, but you talk about that kind of, that took you a year, sorry, big difference.
No, it's an hour to get there, yeah.
Yeah, and to transition. And absolutely, right, because like owning your own business, you were in charge of every single thing, and some of those things need to be done in certain ways, right? And it's the I can sit on the sofa today, or I can make a difference, and it comes back to that: do one thing every day, or whatever you want to, however you want to choose to do it. But it is tough. But I also I feel like we've done full circle back to when the very first question, which was, what are you trying to achieve? And there was some conversation in there around corporate being hard, burnout, that sort of stuff. And we sort of finished back there with sort of corporate being hard, and actually we want more time. We want to spend time together. Ciaran needed to stop going to service stations and buying sandwiches and Twixes. And, it is interesting how these things do. By the way, we also don't like the word journey, so that's why we reframe it as an adventure. So it
I think that's and to be perfectly honest, that's what every day is, isn't it? And even right from the moment we first met, it was an adventure, and it didn't realize, and so when you ask where do you want to go next, or how do you, well, actually, we're as good as the next job we do. We've had this conversation, Alan, which is the fact that you live. There's a book called Live Life in Crescendo, and it is about that, which is you get to a stage, and certainly the older you get, where you have all the experience, you have all the knowledge, and then you need to put that into place, and you need to make a difference. That may not have been your thoughts when you were 30 or when you were 35, 40, and I certainly see that now, but we want to earn enough, and we want to earn more, but we may have earned a heck of a lot more in corporate life, wouldn't you? Certainly you did, Rachel.
Yeah, but that's not the reason we're doing this now. So, I think that's the crucial thing. And I think the reality is, when we look back on, like, we've, like everybody, you have a journey. God, I've used it again. But our life has been ups and downs, and we've, and through and the resilience has been so important in different stages of our lives. And if we can help other people and to kind of smooth that a little bit for them, or just at times just to kind of feel, do you know what? If we can help them do what they really want to do and make it a bit more comfortable and enjoyable for them to do it, you kind of think, actually, that's really what we're about. And for business owners, getting comfortable marketing and selling themselves, and being comfortable to be, understanding how difficult that can be for people, and even having moved from selling to not selling to selling again, it is a lot of us sometimes their confidence is about kind of understanding, building on what you've done as well, and recognizing that the different steps you've taken. I know I keep using that word now. I think it's because we're not supposed to.
It's because it's in your head.
That's exactly what it is.
She wants to see Alan's face every time she says it.
No.
We call it the J word.
But I think everybody has something valuable to add to life, and everybody building the skills they have. So that's really that's crucial for us, is to make people maximize that.
So what I'm hearing is you are Gandalf in the Lord of the Rings adventure of life, helping all the Bilbo Bagginses out there and working with them. That's what I'm hearing.
Next time we see Ciaran, I want him to have a staff and a beard.
Yeah. Right, which also some of what you're saying takes us to our very last question, because you were talking a moment ago about being younger. So if you could go back to your younger selves when you were partying hard in the 80s or before that.
You keep going back to that bit.
Why would I not? It's fun. And who doesn't like a bit of partying in their life? So we're going to have a domestic after this, everyone. I can clearly feel it. So you go back to your younger selves, wherever you choose. What are you going to say to your younger selves?
Oh, to me?
Either of you.
Yeah, just enjoy it and enjoy the ride. And it's actually, whatever you've done, don't overthink it. Give it a blast. Learn from what you've done, and just I think people, the older you get, sometimes it's people overthink it, and they can, I should have done this, I should have, and then suddenly I kind of found it in my sort of late 50s. You go, do you know what? Why am I getting so? It'll work tomorrow, and we'll see, and I'll do, and we'll make the most of it. And so all those years in your 40s or whatever, or in your 30s, where you think, oh God, I shouldn't have said this or I shouldn't have said that, and you go, hold on a minute, I didn't do it with malice, or I didn't say these. You just do it, and then you learn from it. So that'd be my advice, which is actually each new day you get a chance, or each new minute you get a chance to actually make up for what you're doing and do it, and don't overthink it, but don't, if you have done something wrong, or if there is a mistake, just realize that actually try not to do it again.
Perfect answer.
Whilst you're on your journey of life.
Well, right. you should play Don't Stop Believing here at this stage, shouldn't you?
We'll fade it in.
Journey as they go.
What about you, Rachel? What did you say to your younger self?
I think I would give my younger self a big hug and sort of say, do you know what? You are brilliant and you are good enough. Because I think my younger self definitely lacked confidence.
Now, I was saying that to you all the time.
I know,
and she should.
But I think if I could, had somebody who, I'm not saying somebody, but myself, to realize actually what everybody else is saying is true. So the old inner critic.
That counts for a lot. It counts for a lot. And you can have everyone in the world.
Those kids that were in her class, that is the truth. They did, because you come into the pub and you go, they just said I'm the best teacher they've ever had, and they love history and it's their favourite subject. It's true though, wasn't it?
I prefer
Take it, Rachel. If someone else is saying it, it means a lot.
I'm with you on that, though. I am with you on that. Something you can have it all from outside, but unless you believe it inside, it can just be words. It's just words out there, and you need to believe it for yourself. And I completely resonate with that. Yeah.
That's what fuels our work with people, to say, actually, you do have to believe it. And if it is your business, or if it is your role to go out there, you have to believe that you are, because you're trying not convince people or to get them to do stuff they don't want to do. It's just to look, this is what I have to offer, and if they don't like it, it's not personal. It's the fact that it's not quite right for them or whatever.
Yeah.
And you believe that,
totally.
man.
No, I've always believed for other people. I think that's the thing. Like, I've always championed. I think I've always championed other people more than I've championed myself, and that's probably why this business works so well.
No, amazing. Guys, well, thank you so much for joining us. We've absolutely loved chatting away to you. And as always, thank you guys for watching, listening to Digital Circus Life. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks a million.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Cheers.